Andy, now it's your turn.
Uh-oh.
I know that you have a similar objective for your organization as Little Kids Rock, but Music Empowers operates differently. Tell us how it came to be.
Sure.
It's been a little over a year since you founded it, what's happened during that year, and how your organization works.
The genesis is probably a fairly typical story, but it goes back about 10 years or so, actually, in terms of the conception. And my wife and I were talking about what we would do in retirement and how we might look to give back to society and do some good work out there. We knew that it wanted to be something that involved music. We had both come from musical families, although neither my wife nor I were actually musicians ourselves. We joke that the genes skipped a generation, but parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, lots of engagement in music. So we've seen firsthand, really, through that, the impact that music can have on one's life, and we were certainly devoted listeners of music and devotees of the arts, whether that be ballet or classical music or a lot of different genres of music. We also had a dedication to education because we felt that education is a real key to training kids for the future and preparing them for the future, and we wanted to make sure that we supported education out there. The trick was, how do we merge those two together? And we sort of put that on the shelf, and we come back to that in 10 years. Unfortunately, my wife passed away, but when I retired from the corporate world of branding products, I wanted something to do other than just being a full-time dad, which is a great job, but wanted something in addition to that. And I came back to the idea of music and education and starting a foundation, and it just evolved into Music Empowers Foundation, and spent a lot of time figuring out the mission. And once the mission of an organization is clear, the rest sort of comes from that. The early stages of the organization, I really spent a lot of time trying to network, meet people, researched a lot of organizations that would be organizations that I would like to help fund. And all along, the idea of the foundation was not to do programming. I don't really have that expertise, but to invest and fund other organizations that do programming. And as we discussed at the beginning, reaching as many kids as possible in communities that have little or no music education out there. The other thing we kind of knew is that we wanted it to be innovative music instruction. We wanted it to be contemporary based. Now, not that we are exclusively funding contemporary music-based programs. We have a strong penchant towards that. It's a personal preference, but I also think that's a great way to engage kids in music these days. Not every kid wants to learn classical music or jazz, or as Dave pointed out, some of the very mundane and boring music that's available in the rudimentary instructional books. So we spent a lot of time trying to identify those organizations. Little Kids Rock certainly was one of those organizations. We tried to find organizations that would have a large impact. So we looked to national organizations that were reaching a broad number of kids. Again, we don't exclusively deal with national organizations, but that's an orientation and a direction that we have, because that way we make our money go further. But in this first year, certainly we've done a lot of good work, giving a big grant to Little Kids Rock to help them expand the program. We do a lot of work with Berkeley City Music Network, which is a program run out of Berkeley College of Music in Boston. Slightly different model than Little Kids Rock, but still reaching a great number of kids with contemporary music across the country. We've worked with a great group called Donors Choose, in this case focusing a lot on contemporary music programs in New Orleans and the school systems down there. We've given away close to $500,000 in the first year. Hope to be able to keep doing that. That's a tall task, but we're going to do our best. It's been a fun first year.
How does your organization raise the money?
In the early stages, which we are still in, I'm the money raiser. I'm the endower of the organization. So the large portion of the money comes from myself. And that certainly was my intention in the beginning, to endow the foundation. Over the course of time, to sustain, we need to raise funds, and we are developing methodologies to do that.
You're doing some matching where you put up money if an organization raises a certain amount of money.
And that was the Donors Choose program. And what we did is we matched funds that Donors Choose donors would raise. So if a school program in New Orleans cost $1,000 for a couple of new guitars for that school, individual donors could come into Donors Choose. They raised $500. Music Empowers chipped in the other $500.
Also, you're working with Quincy Jones, I know.
Quincy Jones Music Foundation and Quincy Jones Music Consortium is a group that we work with, and Little Kids Rock also works with them. They're a great organization, and what they're trying to do is bring together the disparate members of the music education philanthropic community to try to affect a greater change, both in government policy, in leveraging funds, and in attracting funds, to try to again, bring music education to kids. It's still the basic orientation of that program, but trying to approach it as a team effort, figuring that many organizations working together might be able to do what individual organizations cannot.
And I know you've both been really successful at getting celebrity and well-known musicians and other public figures to get involved with your programs. In fact, the other day, I tried to call you and you were meeting with a famous baseball player, I think it was. So,
a heck of a guy, too.
You want to talk a little bit about that? I know you're working with Chris Allen, and you've got, I think, Bonnie Raitt's on your board, and talk about the role of celebrities in helping you promote this and raise the profile.
I'll start because I'm the neophyte in this, and Dave's going to have a lot more to contribute. We work with Chris Allen, who's the 2009 American Idol winner, and he's been a tremendous advocate of music education for kids, and you can see how a musician would relate to the missions of both Dave's organization and mine. What we look for Chris to do is to help in two arenas. We look for him to certainly raise awareness and help to give a face to music empowers. He can also give a voice to the need for music education in schools. The other way we use Chris is, of course, to help us raise funds. A celebrity like Chris has access to a tremendous fan base, and they can marshal that fan base behind causes they support to help us raise money, which then, of course, we disperse to other organizations to help them.
Including Little Kids Rock.
Absolutely. And before I answer that question, I do want to point out, I think Andy is very modest. The Music Empowers Foundation is actually one of the only foundations that I'm aware of in the United States, and believe me, I look for this funding quite often, that is entirely focused on the mission of bringing music into children's lives. It is a vastly underfunded field, and the Music Empowers Foundation deserves a lot of kudos for, I think, leading the charge. I hope that they will have many imitators, and I also hope that many people will rally behind what Andy has done. And the other organizations that he's selected are excellent. It's just wonderful to have him as a booster and peer in the field. And the Music Empowers Foundation has a very forward-looking approach as funders, trying to find innovative programs and fund them to be successful rather than building a new vanity program from the ground up, because there's a lot of incredible work going out there right now. In terms of celebrity, Little Kids Rock has worked with many celebrities. I like almost everything I've done in my life, except for the planning of my two children, which were not accidentally brought onto this planet. The fact that we have celebrity involvement really was an accident. I was looking to grow a little teeny program at one school, and I just started sending CDs of the music that kids wrote to celebrities who were nearby in the hopes that they would want to come and check it out. And okay, let's not lie, they weren't CDs. It was a while ago. They were tape cassettes. So I figured no one would listen to them, but what the heck, it cost me, $2 a package. So I sent out exactly 3 packages, one to Bonnie Raitt, one to Carlos Santana, and one to John Lee Hooker, all who lived within a few miles of the school that I was at. And to my great surprise, all 3 of them responded, and responded very favorably. John Lee Hooker came out and visited with the kids. Carlos bought a bunch of guitars for the kids. Bonnie Raitt, as soon as we became a nonprofit, joined our honorary board of directors. And again, the connection was just very authentic. They believed in the mission of what we were doing, and that's how we got them involved. Then, of course, didn't hurt that helped really attract other people into the fold, and so now we've gotten more strategic in terms of reaching out to other artists.
I know you guys serve on each other's boards.
I'm just an advisor. Andy's actually technically my boss, or one of my bosses, because he's on the actual board of directors. I just get to spout off and give him my opinion,
which is very valuable, as you can see.
And I was going to add that some of those celebrities are on your boards too. But another nice thing about an organization like Music Empowers is you take the guesswork out of making donations for people who are interested in supporting music education, but it's difficult to do the research that'll tell you where you'll get the most bang for your buck. And an umbrella organization like yours does that.
It's an excellent point. We think of ourselves as kind of a clearinghouse. You see it now with the situation in Japan. People want to help, but they're not quite sure where to give, and there's so many organizations.
Right.
And I think people who are interested in music and music education, there are many great groups out there, but they don't know how to identify them. We take that guesswork out of it.
I would like to take the time now to play another piece by a Little Kids Rock participant. This is called Stand Out. It's kind of a rock anthem by Maisie McCondry. Let's give that a listen.
call a baby grand. Stand out for what you got. Don't let no one call you something you're not. Stand out for what you got. Don't let no one call you something you're not. Well, I can see that you don't wanna be a figure from the 70s funk. And like you wouldn't wanna change your identity. You don't wanna dye your hair green just to fit with the punks. Stand out for what you got. Don't let no one call you something you're not. Stand out for what you got. Don't let no one call you something you're not. Standing's not standing out. Gotta let yourself go. Gotta roundabout. You may think fitting in's the right way, but there will never ever be a right way. Stand out for what you got. Don't let no one call you something you're not. Stand out for what you got. Don't let no one call you something you're not.
While we were listening, I found out that Maisie is about 10 years old. You've been around as an organization officially for about 10 years now, so you've had a lot of kids who've come through this program. Have any of them gone on to careers in music?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I got an email from one of the kids in my very first guitar class. His name is Francisco Espinosa, and if you look him up online, look up, I think he goes by Frisco Finesse. He works professionally as a musician, and he's recently did some kind of a project with the Black Eyed Peas. I know of many kids who go on and pursue music, although I will say that the goal of the organization is not to produce professional musicians, but rather to bring music into every child's life, and then they take that where that takes them. It's great to see the kids that gravitate to it and who might find their whole life's path just simply because it was there for them.
Right.
So, but it's equally great to see children who, it's not going to be their life path, but it will be a life passion and a life resource and a life gift for them.
Well, guys, my music men, it has been so great to have you here. Thank you for all the good work that you do. Our listeners can learn more about both your organizations at our DIY World Improvement Radio Show Facebook page. Feel free to like all of our organizations on Facebook.
Please.
I want to go out with a piece of music from New Orleans. This is a gospel song that you'll all recognize.
1, 2, ready.
That year and how your organization works.
The genesis is probably a fairly typical story, but it goes back about 10 years or so, actually, in terms of the conception. And my wife and I were talking about what we would do in retirement and how we might look to give back to society and do some good work out there. We knew that it wanted to be something that involved music. We had both come from musical families, although neither my wife nor I were actually musicians ourselves. We joke that the genes skipped a generation, but parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, lots of engagement in music. So we've seen firsthand really through that the impact that music can have on one's life, and we were certainly devoted listeners of music and devotees of the arts, whether that be ballet or classical music or a lot of different. It's a great job, but wanted something in addition to that. And I came back to the idea of music and education and starting a foundation, and it just evolved into Music Empowers Foundation, and spent a lot of time figuring out the mission. And once the mission of an organization is clear, the rest sort of comes from that. The early stages of the organization, I really spent a lot of time trying to network, meet people, researched a lot of organizations, that genres of music. We also had a dedication to education because we felt that education is a real key to training kids for the future and preparing them for the future, and we wanted to make sure that we supported education out there. The trick was, how do we merge those two together? And we sort of put that on the shelf, and we come back to that in 10 years. Unfortunately, my wife passed away, but when I retired from the corporate world of branding products, I wanted something to do other than just being a full-time dad, which
Andy, now it's your turn.
Uh-oh.
I know that you have a similar objective for your organization as Little Kids Rock, but Music Empowers operates differently. Tell us how it came to be.
Sure.
It's been a little over a year since you founded it. What's happened during that?